What is up, everybody? What is up? This is Dr. Andrew Kim, and welcome to another live stream of the Insomniacs with your host, me, Dr. Andrew Kim. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you to my imaginary crowd. Well, thank you again, guys, for joining in. For those of you who are here live with me, my name is Dr. Andrew Kim. I am a board-certified psychiatrist, and we've been doing these live streams pretty regularly now for the last couple of weeks. We've been doing it Tuesday nights and Saturday nights at 10:30 Central, 11:30 Eastern. So make sure to remember that. Check our bookmarked streams that we try to put up so that you can know when it's coming up. So today, on today's episode, we are going to be talking about kind of the murky, I guess we could say shady history of direct-to-consumer advertising. Direct-to-consumer advertising by pharmaceutical companies, by holistic supplement manufacturers, by just the drug industry, the tobacco industry. So direct-to-consumer advertising, okay? Is this a practice that we should stop, that we need to more highly regulate, that we should just let it be? You know, this is America. We should have freedom of speech. We should allow consumers to be informed, make their own decisions. They're adults. I want to hear what you have to think about that topic, okay? So that's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to try to present it in a fair and balanced way, but I also want to show you some of the kind of ridiculousness of what we're dealing with when it comes to direct-to-consumer advertising. So before we dive into a bunch of images that I'm going to show you, I am going to take you down history lane, just so that everyone here can understand that I am not using hyperbole. I'm not doing this for shock effect. You will see exactly what I'm talking about. There have been some crazy direct-to-consumer advertising that has gone on throughout the history of the world, throughout the history of the United States. That's what we're going to talk about, and I'm going to show you so you can see with your own eyes exactly what I'm talking about and why there are dangers, why that should raise some skepticism, and why it raises that question I posed to you: should we allow this practice to continue happening? And I mean it not only just for, consumers or customers, but even for physicians, right? That's a whole separate episode in itself, but we could talk about how, we might need to limit the influence of pharma and medical device makers and holistic drug makers, even with healthcare clinicians. But today I'm talking specifically about direct-to-consumer advertising. So real quick, look, this is not a novel concept. If you could go back in time from the beginnings of publications and written history, there has probably been direct-to-consumer advertising. Obviously, there were not these mega conglomerate pharma companies back then. It might have been the local, shaman or someone local, pharmaceutical person who's just basically selling some kind of antidote, concoction, etc. So trust me, this is not a novel concept, but at least, from a mega business standpoint, right? I mean, these ads were starting, at least in the US, right? Around the globe, really. In Europe, even in the 18th century, from the infancy of America when it first started. And then really, in my opinion, where it became this booming, I would say 8-figure, 9-figure kind of industry in the 80s, 1980s, there became much more direct to public access of the information of prescription drugs through direct-to-consumer advertising. There was Merck, who ran ads for Pneumovax back in 1981. Then Boots Pharmaceuticals in the early 80s began doing direct-to-consumer marketing for Rufin, which was a non-steroidal anti-inflammatory, or NSAID. Sertraline or Zoloft. They were one of the biggest when it comes to the mental health field to get this like direct to consumer marketing with this message, right? You have a chemical imbalance and you need to balance it out. Kind of raising this uproar among society. Talk to your doctor. Ask them why they haven't balanced you out with your chemicals to make you less depressed. Very strategic, very influential, and obviously influences kind of what patients then want, what they're asking for, what they're asking their doctors to do for them. Um, Very influential, in my opinion. Okay. And then later, as this is becoming a growing industry and a growing concern, the FDA started establishing some regulations requiring these companies to follow certain rules about having to disclose side effects and other information. That's why nowadays it's almost like a running joke, right? I mean, SNL has done several funny skits over the years where, you know, you have someone rambling about, oh, like use this to cure your depression, but then it can also cause stroke and heart attacks and this and that. And you just ramble for 3 minutes, right? Just listing off all these horrible things, right? So, you know, and here's the thing, right? And I'll end it with this before we dive into some of our images. This is a huge thing. This isn't just me, you know, making a mountain out of molehill or something tiny. These are outdated stats, okay? These are outdated stats, but the last I saw was like up to like 2016, like in the decade leading up to 2016, 2000, you know, the budget for direct-to-consumer advertising had reached about $6 billion. I said billion with a B. I didn't say million. So this is a multi-billion dollar, you know, agenda that drug companies have to influence you. So thank you, Dennis, for joining, Carrie for joining. Thank you, Carrie. I know you commented earlier on one of my other videos. So Carrie asks, what do you think about the increased prevalence of weight loss drugs like Ozempic and Wegovy? Are you worried about it? Yeah, we're actually going to touch upon that later. I am. I mean, look, am I against adults making informed decisions to fight off obesity? No, I'm not against that. I just, as long as it's done in a healthy, sound fashion, of course, I would prefer that people try to use, you know, healthy eating habits, exercise, etc. But sometimes, you know, that may be very challenging for certain individuals. Others have comorbidities, diabetes, etc. So, of course, I'm not absolutely against it. Am I concerned at how much those ads are being bombarded and in our faces on every nook and cranny of social media, on X, on Instagram, on you know, on YouTube itself with these pop-up ads? I'll laugh later when an Ozempic ad pops up later on one of my videos, probably. But I'm concerned because I am certain, I don't think this is an opinion, I am certain people who probably don't need to be on it are just asking for it more in this like boutique style. Hey, I just want to use this as the next diet fad, right? So we don't want to vilify it because there probably is a very, you know, helpful role for a niche of patients. I do think it's probably being overutilized. And I do think the demand is being generated by drug companies. The demand is being generated versus allowing a doctor and patient to discuss if that's an appropriate step. It's creating this artificial demand, putting pressure on society to then demand these things. That's where I get concerned, right? And we're not even talking that, we haven't even gotten into the fact that we're almost trying to cut out the clinician-patient relationship, right? We'll talk about HIMSS later, where half the time in a lot of these states, you don't have to talk to anyone. You fill out some surveys and you type a few things and you just get it, erectile dysfunction meds mailed straight to you, right? Right. So Dennis, appreciate you joining, Dennis, this late at night. Dennis says, in addition to disrupting the doctor-patient relationship by having the patient demand a specific drug, I think direct-to-consumer marketing leads to drug firms inventing diseases. Well, yeah, Dennis, I don't disagree. Dennis. That's kind of what I'm referring to. They're almost kind of, I think the lines maybe get a little blurred, but it's, yeah, I think in some cases, minimum generating demand. But yeah, maybe sometimes, I believe you, maybe sometimes even inventing diseases. And we'll talk about that concept later. So if you stick with me, one of the ads I'll show you later, we'll talk about the concept of inventing diseases, right? So let's go through memory lane, guys, okay? So I'm going to pull up a few ads. So if you stick with me, you may laugh at the ridiculousness of this. I am being serious. I mean, you can go Google these. You can find these. I am not making these up. Some of these are insane. So exhibit number 1. Cocaine candy. How does that sound, guys? So Carrie, Dennis, if you're still here with me, cocaine candy for your children. I am not making this up. This is cocaine candy to combat a sweet tooth for your kids. Well, I'm pretty sure that'll probably take care of a sweet tooth for a little bit. So cocaine for your children. I kid you not. Let's move on. I don't even need to emphasize that anymore. Okay, guys, next one. Let's take a look at this beauty. Oh gosh, guys. All right. Stay fit and slim by taking amphetamines. That's right, amphetamines. So interestingly, right, amphetamines, these synthetic amphetamines, I believe were produced and created, at least in mass, in Germany back in the late 1800s. They were widely utilized in combat. Soldiers were given this even throughout the course of World War I, World War II. But this then became almost like a weird cure-all for everything. So I'm going to show you this one here. So amphetamine to stay slim and fit, playing into these, sexism overtones of back in the day. Look at this. Keep the reducer happy. Methadone in obesity. I think they're talking about that device that would swivel back and forth. Maybe I could be wrong. Someone correct me. But I think keep the reducer happy. Put that to the side. And just take some amphetamines. Oh my gosh, so just take some amphetamines, all right? Let's move on. Another one. Look, they really like targeting women and just ramping them up with amphetamines and speed. Look at this. To brighten your outlook. To brighten your outlook in menstrual dysfunction. How about that, ladies? For the ladies who are listening in live or the ladies who are looking at this after this is recorded and you're watching it post live. How about in this day and age, you go to your doctor and you're like, hey, what can I do about some of my, menstrual symptoms? Here, take some speed. Well, yeah, I guess temporarily it might actually not make you forget at least, or maybe mask some of those symptoms. But what the consequences, obviously, right? So look at this, guys. And look, I know we're joking and laughing. These are so ridiculous, but think about this, right? Think about this. This is the danger, right? Over-promising, not recognizing side effects, adverse effects, the dangers, addiction, dependence, tolerance, right? And we're laughing, and we can do that with humor, looking back at the past and what we didn't know in science. But look now, we'll get to it later. You've seen my other video. For those of you who've been following me, I'm worried we actually have a stimulant epidemic happening right now in America. And I know. Look, I want to be super clear. I believe ADHD exists. Okay. I'm not vilifying the appropriate treatment. Did you hear the words out of my mouth? The appropriate treatment of ADHD. But do I believe that ADHD is overdiagnosed? Yes, I do. Maybe let me clarify. Do I think it's overdiagnosed in people who don't have it, or who have very, very, very mild symptoms of it? Absolutely. And I know, here's the crazy part, guys. I am a psychiatrist. I am all for treating patients appropriately. Treating ADHD is a satisfying thing because we see such rapid results sometimes. Okay? I'm not against it. Anyone who wants to say I'm against, you're twisting my words. But the moment I say and even question the fact that there is a diagnosing problem and a misdiagnosing, overdiagnosing problem, that we're diagnosing it too much, I get criticism and I will get attacked by folks who are in ADHD advocacy groups. I support ADHD advocacy. Okay. Andy, thank you for joining again, Andy. Andy is a regular joining on these live streams. How about self-diagnosis? Absolutely. That's part of the problem. Look, it's a good and a bad thing, right? I'm not against the dissemination of information, right? That's the beauty of the internet. That's the beauty of AI. That's the beauty of social media, things like this, right? I mean, you're coming here sometimes to learn a few pearls of wisdom here and there that I could try to convey, right? Information is at your finger. There's a beauty to that, but there's a danger to that, right? Taken out of context. And pharmaceutical companies know this. They know this, and they know how human psychology works. If you could strike fear, and not even fear, if you can play to someone's insecurities. Hey, if there was a clear fixable explanation where you just pop a pill and all those things that have been hindering you go away, why wouldn't you? You should. How come your doctor hasn't even helped you with that? And going back to Dennis's point, generating demand. In some cases, again, I'm going to be careful here, probably inventing the concept of a disease in someone who doesn't have it. And again, that's to the detriment of the folks who actually have those issues, that actually have ADHD, that actually have severe obesity and need the help of Ozempic, who have bad ADHD and need the help of a stimulant, right? Dangerous, dangerous. So even though we mock and laugh and joke at the past, look at where we are in 2024. I don't know that we're that much better, to be blunt. Okay, let's go through memory lane a little bit more, guys. Here's the next one. Here's the next one to just show you guys why skepticism. I'm a prescriber. I'm telling you to be skeptical. Be skeptical of what you read. It's okay. Be skeptical of me. A confident physician will welcome it and say, all right, let me explain why we're going to prescribe this or why I recommend this, right? Someone who backs away from that or gets upset, okay, ego, insecurity themselves, you should ask. You should advocate for yourself. That's why I promote healthy skepticism. Let's take a look at the next one. Heroin. Heroin for your cough, of all things. Look who the maker is, okay? It wasn't some offshoot, unknown, obscure person, and I'm just cherry picking ridiculous scenarios. So Carrie, Andy, look at this. Heroin from Bayer Pharmaceuticals, one of the biggest still to this day in existence, a huge pharmaceutical company. Not that long ago, we were saying, take some heroin to knock out that cough. Oh boy, I bet you got some relief from that cough when you shot yourself up and took some heroin. Good Lord, guys. Okay? Look at the year. This wasn't that long ago when you really think about it. Okay? Meaning, theoretically, you might, if you have a really young family, you might have a great-grandparent or grandparent who might have been around when they're just saying, hey, take some heroin for that cough, for that nagging cough, guys. That will knock it out for sure. That will knock it out for sure, guys. All right, we're going to speed through some of these other ones, okay? Cigarettes. I mean, this is an old one, but even you could think, right, for those of you who are 80s babies, right, or 70s, right, all the print ads on billboards, on magazines, they've had to dial it back, obviously, over the years. Well, now vaping's here, but look at this, you know? Cigarettes to tamp down those indulgences. And look at that. You can go from being that chubby dude on the left to being an athletic Olympic sprinter. Just smoke, right? I even saw one that said, here's some cigarettes for your asthma. You think I'm joking? Go look up on Google Images, smoking and cigarettes for asthma, and you'll see print ads for that. Skepticism, guys, skepticism. Now, look, I'm not just picking on the pharma industry, and this is where some people get upset. I don't care anymore. I'm 42. I don't care what people think about me at this point, okay? The non-pharma industry is not innocent as well. Oh, no, they don't get a free pass from me, okay? Holistic supplements, random medical devices that are not medical devices. Give me a break, guys. There is a long-standing history of this being as problematic as the pharma industry. Okay, let's take a look at some of those things. They're not innocent either. Look at this. It's like some kind of weird corset thing, right? I mean, really, this is for your kids, okay? This isn't even pandering to that sexism we were mentioning earlier, guys. Look at this. Your child must be kept healthy, okay? Or, look at this. Your child must be kept healthy or she cannot be beautiful. Good Lord. Can you see this? Your child needs to wear this tight corset and have some weird stereotypical image of a slim waistline or whatever, or they're not going to be beautiful. Good Lord. Let's pander to those parental insecurities. Okay. So look at these devices. Look at these holistics. Look at this. Fat. The enemy that is shortening your life is banished if you just ingest a bunch of our Sanitized tapeworms. Oh, good Lord. I feel gross just even saying that out. Just take some of, take a fistful of sanitized tapeworms. Are you kidding me, guys? Okay. But come on. You know what I'm saying, right? You see it all the time on your social media. We're not even just talking about the pharma companies, right? How many advertisements are you bombarded with on social media that say, take this and you'll lose weight in 30 days. Take this and you're going to, be trimmed down. Take this and you're going to fall asleep right away. Okay. Screw prescriptions. Screw this, screw that. This will cure cancer. And the funny part is, you think you should be skeptical about prescription drugs that are FDA approved, which, look, FDA approved doesn't mean awesome. Trust me. If you want to hear an episode later, we'll talk about my criticisms of the FDA and how there's so many drugs that get FDA approved that I feel like should not be allowed to be marketed. We can do an episode on that in the future. But you think that's a problem? All these holistic supplements, it is the Wild West. They're marketed. They found the loophole, right? The loophole is it's a dietary supplement, right? They could make 8,000 claims and in one asterisk say, these statements and claims were not approved by the FDA. This is not meant to be used for medicinal purposes. But above, in bold print, in font that is 8 times larger, this can cure this can cure that, this can treat this can treat that. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me, right? So trust me, the non-pharma industry is a multi-billion, with a B, billion dollar industry as well. And they love it because they can use the seeds of skepticism and fear that people tend to have naturally of the pharma industry against the pharma industry to their advantage. The big, scary Darth Vader pharma guys, they're liars. They just want your money. They don't really want to heal you. They don't want to let you use nature's bounty and nature's medicine. So use us and we'll cure everything. But we don't have the proof. We don't have well-controlled studies. But just take it anyway and spend your hard-earned money and put your hopes into this and your optimism into this. And it's not going to work more than likely, right? So don't give me a break. Holistic industry, just as guilty of this, guys, both. Okay, see, I'm fair. I criticize everybody. I'm skeptical of everyone. I'm critical of everybody, okay? It's not this versus that, just because trust me, I know. I want you to hear this out. I know that these holistic supplements, they do have medicinal properties. They do. I did a video on melatonin. I know that it can work in certain subtypes of insomnia, okay? St. John's wort is nature's SSRI. It actually has SSRI properties, okay? Ashwagandha can affect serotonin, GABA, right? We've talked about GABA in some of my videos, right? So this isn't about me not believing or me being a puppet of pharma. I think pharma has so many flaws, but they do have some positives. They innovate. I think there are good things about holistic supplements, but they're just as scummy as scammy too, guys. Okay? If all of these things work so well on this side, prove it. And they say, whoa, too expensive. We don't need to. Look at this random literature from the annals of history. They feel like they get a free pass. Okay? Both sides have problems. Okay, moving on. So let's fast forward now. We went down memory lane, and now you can see, right? Now you can see that I'm not making things up. There has been a long-standing history. And do you see how insane and how much people get away with, how much businesses get away with preying on your fears, preying on your insecurities, selling you a bottle full of hope, and all they're doing is pocketing cash. Can you see that, right? So again, this is not a thing of the past. You see it with your own eyes every day because you know what? For these manufacturers, these businesses, the greatest thing has happened in the last couple decades. Talk about the term, right? That term direct-to-consumer marketing takes a brand new meaning when literally that marketing is in your pocket, it's in front of your eyes, it's buzzing and telling you, look at me, look at me, look at me, look at me. And even when you're trying to look at other things, things pop up. Social media, things pop up. Website, things pop up. There's marketing text messages, and you think it's a text message for you from someone you know. Oh my God, these businesses love it. They are literally attached to your hips and your eyeballs and your fingers now. How much more dangerous is this now? Even more than before. Okay? What we've made up in our knowledge base as the human race and society here in America, now we've given up some freedoms where, the marketers are even more inside of our head, more than ever before. So let's talk about what I mean, right? So that you see that I'm not exaggerating, right? Let's go to modern day. Okay, let's look at a couple things here. So what do we got for modern day? All right. Oh gosh, yeah. Why don't we start with this? Let's go back to what Dennis was saying, and I know I went on that rant about stimulants, but look, are you a good parent? Are you a good parent? Don't you want little Johnny, to look like this kid with the soccer ball, smiling, right? Do you want him to take off those googly-eyed, that monster hat? I guess the monster represents ADHD, and be himself. Why? Why are you getting in the way of little Johnny living his good life and not struggling? Put him on some Adderall. Put him on some Concerta. Look at that. Look at the cartoon on the bottom, in the bottom right. Today I got a good mark and I made a new friend. What a great day. What's your problem, mommy, daddy? Don't you want your kid to be like this? Did you know? Let's go back to Dennis's point, generating, right? And again, I'm gonna get criticized, right? I'm gonna get criticized for this. I'm just telling you how it is, okay? Before atomoxetine or Strattera came out, which is a non-stimulant, right? Because prior to that, it was Ritalin, it was Adderall, different variations of Ritalin, Adderall. So a company came out with atomoxetine, which used to be called Strattera, and they're like, how are we going to compete when people love that feeling that kicks in when you take a stimulant that works right away? Our drug, it takes about a month, 4 or 5 weeks to even start, really taking to effect. How are we going to compete against stimulants? You know what? Let's raise this fear-mongering concept of adult ADHD. Fascinatingly, if you ask psychiatrists of generations of past, and if you asked them, they said, hey, people who didn't struggle with this then suddenly struggle with it in adulthood with ADHD, is that possible? I say, no, that's not ADHD then. Now the narrative has totally changed, right? Now you hear 8,000 reasons about how it's, no, there is this adult ADHD. Just, it was hidden before, it was masked before, you could make up for it, right? And again, am I saying that's impossible? No, I'm not saying it's impossible. But is it weird? Is it weird that there's so many people now in America who suddenly have this adult ADHD? And again, I'm going to get criticized. I'm going to say, oh no, these were people who had never been diagnosed. Diagnosing, the ability for diagnosing wasn't there before. Access was poor before. Yeah, some of those things are true. So I'm not being black and white. But it's also a farce how we diagnose ADHD. I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole. You can go watch my video. Ask a bunch of survey questions, non-specific. It is as basic as that. Any psychiatrist who tells you otherwise, it's narcissism or their ego wanting to convince themselves it's more sophisticated than that. It's a bunch of survey questions and observations. When someone has severe ADHD, you don't need them to go get tested. That's the funny part. So the severe ones are the ones you can spot with clinical observation and some interviews. The mild ones, no, it's hard to tell. Those are the ones who can mask it, right? And that's where you have to be careful. You don't want to be dismissive because someone has mild or mild to moderate ADHD. It's hard to spot sometimes. They need the testing. It is almost backwards, right? Testing is so hard to get. So we just ask a bunch of non-specific survey questions. These patients have all this pressure on them. I'm struggling and I'm having a hard time. I'm falling behind at work. I'm not getting the grades at school. My parents are saying, what's wrong with you? You know what? Those commercials said, I probably have ADHD. You know what? This doctor said no. This doctor says no. I'm going to go to the third one. They're going to say yes. They're going to give me some Concerta and Ritalin and Adderall, Vyvanse, whatever. Oh, it's happening, guys. Okay? It's happening. ADHD Society is going to say I'm wrong. Andy Lee, look at this. Andy says, I went to my first appointment at a new doctor one time, was given 10-question questionnaire, and walked out with a prescription for Adderall. It was nuts. I believe you, Andy. I just described what happens with colleagues of mine, right? I'm not saying I'm better. I'm just saying that's what happens. Unless you have really good insurance, which a lot of Americans don't, and you can go to a psychologist and go get 2 to 5 hours of actual testing to then complement or supplement an actual long-term relationship with the doctor over multiple visits, and you combine those two things to then try to make an accurate diagnosis of ADHD. That's how you're supposed to do it. Is that what happens in America? BS. BS. That is not what happens. BS, guys. Not what's happening out there. You go online, you fill out some stupid questionnaire, you talk to a doctor or an MP and an MP for like 30 minutes at best, and you're walking out with Vyvanse or Adderall or Ritalin. That's what's happening to you. That's what's happening to your children. Some of you actually have ADHD, and then good for you. Like I said, I want those who have it get better. I'm telling you right now, vast majority don't. Vast majority don't. Okay? ADHD advocacy groups are going to say, oh, it's Dr. Kim's an idiot. Go read it. Go Google it. Go Google it right now. For those of you who are watching this live, go Google it. Google the term. Google this phrase. Is ADHD being overdiagnosed or underdiagnosed? All your search engine will say underdiagnosed. Underdiagnosed is what it's say. I call BS. How much money is going into SEO, search engine optimization? Who has deep coffers? What did I just say? How much money is being spent? Billions. Billions. Okay. And I've worked as a speaker on Johnson & Johnson's speaker bureau. I've done drug talks before. So trust me, if there's anyone who wants, you say, oh, follow the money trail. Yeah, I've done stuff like that when I believed in a certain product. Okay. And I'm here criticizing. Follow the money trail. So Andy's totally right. Andy's exactly describing what I'm describing here. So that's an example, modern day. We were joking about all those amphetamines in the past. You know, amphetamines make you slim. Amphetamines take away your menstrual problems. Look, we're just saying, medicate the hell of the next generation of our children because they all got ADHD, right? Look, modern day stuff. Look at this. Again, I'm going to be balanced, not just the pharma industry. Pure green coffee, lose fat, right? Even Dr. Oz, apparently. Dr. Oz. God, Dr. Oz. Jeez. What a charlatan. Dr. Oz. Oh, yeah, let me tell you how I feel about that. Dr. Oz, you got all these people promoting this stuff, right? Look at this. Lose fat. 100% natural. Is it? Boost results. No side effects. That's the red flag right there. No side effects? God, this sounds great. I just took coffee and a pill. I mean, I've been drinking 8 cups of coffee a day, apparently, right? I don't know. I've been gaining weight in 2024. So apparently, had I just been popping pure green coffee, man, I'd have no side effects and I'd lose all this fat naturally, right? And again, you can get away with this because this is not being marketed as a medicine. This is a dietary supplement. No rules. Wild West. Good Lord, guys. Okay? And they know our insecurities, right? It's embedded in our culture. I got to look good. I got to be slim and trim. I got to have a six-pack. Oh, and they know. And we know that they know, and we're so insecure, myself included, that we buy these things from time to time. We test it out, right? Let's wrap it up, guys. Let's go to some of the ones that other people have already talked about. Then we'll get to some of the comments, right? Look at this. You've been bombarded, especially the males. You have been bombarded by Hims and whatever the other competitor to Hims is, right? Roman or Roe or whatever the hell they're called. Get ED treatment for $5. $5 and get a boner, guys. $5. $5 for a boner. $5 per boner. Like, good Lord. I mean, I wonder if they sit in their board meetings and just maybe, I don't know if they calculate productivity or like their or their their growth for 2024 per boner, if they could break it down, profit per boner. Okay, I've gotten off the rails here a little bit, but I, imagine being in a boardroom setting and you being the guy. I'm going to say that. What is the profit per boner that we're getting out there in America today? So someone needs to do a study on that. So someone needs to coin that. One of my listeners, someone who's like creative. Let's make a T-shirt together, guys. Okay, we'll make a split. You design it. I'll if it's good, if it's legit, I'll sell it here on my YouTube channel. Let's make a deal, seriously. So, any of you artistic graphic designers, come up with something with that concept, right? Profit per boner or profit share for shareholders per boner, and break down a cost. Let's do it, guys. Let's make this a T-shirt, or let's put on a mug at least. So, but look, in all seriousness, right? Now they're playing to the male insecurities, right? And am I against guys getting ED treatment? No, I've as a psychiatrist, I prescribe sildenafil, tadalafil. Why? Because the SSRIs can cause sexual dysfunction in men and women. It can cause erectile. So I'm used to prescribe. So I'm not against the concept of treating it when it needs to be treated, but it's just like, gosh, generating demand, right? Everywhere you look, you see a Hims commercial, a this commercial. And again, the scary part is, right, like there's you in several states, I'd say at least maybe 15, maybe more, you don't even need to talk to a clinician. You fill out a survey, and then bam, get it mailed to you directly. We got a couple comments and questions. So Carrie says, speaking of Hims, have you heard of post-finasteride syndrome with persistent sexual side effects and depression after stopping? Huh. No, I'm not. You stumped me there. I'll have to look into that, Carrie. That's interesting. Post-finasteride syndrome with persistent sexual side effects. Obviously, I'm a bit more familiar with PSSD, or persistent post-SSRI sexual dysfunction, reports of patients who, even after you stopped your SSRI and even after it's left your bloodstream, and there's a delay sometimes, like Prozac could take even 5 weeks to leave your bloodstream, but folks still having a prolonged sexual dysfunction after stopping their SSRIs, that is something that's continuing to gain more traction and research. Still a little bit controversial in how to study that, but that's what I'm more familiar with. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if other, drugs out there do something similar. I'll have to look into that. So thank you for bringing that up. I'll have to look into that one. So let's take a last thing. So this was something that Carrie brought up earlier. Same thing now, right? With Ozempic and other competitors, other GLP-1 receptor agonists, right? Ozempic, look at that. Lose 35 pounds on weekly shot, right? So not even necessarily emphasizing medicinal purposes, like let's treat, obesity that, is going to cause you health risks in the long run, lower those risks for longevity of, reducing those health risk outcomes. But it's more just like, let's just give you a large number to find sexy, whet your appetite, bang. Inject yourself, lose some weight, guys. Right? You are inundated with these ads. You're inundated with the Hims and boner ads, right? All over the place, right? So, okay, guys. So to wrap it up, let's get back. I know it was fun though. I had fun actually researching these things, pulling these up. Some of these old ads I already had in my hard drive because I did a lecture one time to some students, kind of just showing again the concept of healthy skepticism, right? Healthy skepticism. So, but in all seriousness, right? Let's bring it back now to the original question. Should this be allowed? Right? And I'm not, again, I'm not sure what the answer is, right? Because I'm not really for the concept of like, hey, like healthcare clinicians should be the only gatekeepers of information. No, I don't know. That probably is not the right answer. Should we just let pharma and holistic companies have free reign? I don't think so. Right now, holistic companies say whatever they want. Go pull up an ad right now. So I don't know. I don't know if it's a blend of like, there just needs to be stricter regulation, but stricter regulation, can the government actually enforce that? They can't even enforce cracking down on spam calls, guys. So do I have faith that someone can actually regulate this? No. How many spam calls and spam texts do you guys get a day? No one's even cracking down on that, let alone regulating an industry like this, right? There's lobbying. Some of these politicians are in their pockets. I doubt it's going to happen, but I just want to hear your thoughts. So, do you think the solution is just more regulation of what has to be disclosed, what has to be said, proof of burden, who's going to regulate that? Or we're adults. We should have freedom of speech, let businesses say what they want, and we're adults. We can all decide for ourselves what we purchase, what we don't, what goes in our body, what doesn't. So let it be. I'd rather have freedom of speech, freedom of choice, make my own decision. Okay. I don't know. I mean, I don't know exactly what the right answer is. I do have a problem. It's more probably an emotional response. I'm not trying to sound self-righteous here, but I get this emotional response. I actually get pissed. I get so pissed, and maybe that's just a reflection of something that's happening in my life that I need to be working on more than anything. But I actually get pissed when I see like really scummy ads from group practices even. So forget the pharma companies, group practices. Okay. Group practices, individual physicians who promise these crazy procedures are going to cure things that aren't even considered like standard of care treatment interventions, print ads, holistic companies, preying. I'm going to use the word preying, these predatory practices, right? People who are desperate. I mean, people who are like hopeless and emotionally suffering, people who are physically in chronic pain, in acute pain, making these false promises. Oh, don't believe that pharma company. Just take our supplement, rub some turmeric on your teeth and everything will be cured, right? Rub this ointment on your knee. You don't need that knee replacement. Pharma companies generating demand. Sometimes I actually will agree. Sometimes just making up diseases, in my opinion. I actually don't disagree with that, Dennis. It's just sad. It's just sad. It's like, is it not enough that life is hard, guys? Right? Is it not enough that each and every single one of us have a personal struggle we are going through, whether it be a psychological struggle, a spiritual, emotional struggle, physical struggle, medically speaking, right? And then people have to pile on by peddling snake oil, false hope, trying to get into your pockets while you're suffering, right? That's why I get irked. And that's why I actually enjoy doing videos like this, making content like this, specifically about this topic. I just want to raise awareness, right? I don't have all the answers. I'm not trying to sound more noble. It's just I promote healthy skepticism. I promote wanting you to be educated. I promote wanting you to question things. I want you to question if it sounds too good to be true and you see those red flags. Guaranteed to work. No side effects. Totally natural. Don't need anything else, right? Red flag, red flag, red flag. I want you to protect yourself. I want you to be an advocate for yourself, right? Okay. Yeah, and Andy says, last few comments before we wrap up for tonight. Andy Lee says, there's something weird about a commercial telling me to ask my doctor about their drug. If it's legit and effective, shouldn't my doctor be telling me about it? Yeah, I agree. They should. They should. And like I said, maybe one day, one of these episodes we could do a topic to also talk about the problem on my side, meaning clinicians, right? You would think, right, that we stay on top of our game. And look, I have gaps in my knowledge, right? I mean, look, I'm not I am egotistical, but not overly egotistical. So Carrie asked me a question. I didn't try to pretend like I knew everything. I said, I'm not as familiar with post-finasteride syndrome, right? So we have gaps in our knowledge. And, the scary part is, right, some doctors will go look into literature, even question, is this even a good article? Is this even a well-powered study? Do these results even make sense? What can I generalize from these results? And actually sit there and try to gain knowledge that way in a very systematized, questioning kind of way. And then to Carrie's point, Carrie says, but don't pharma reps also advertise to doctors? So if a doctor tells you about it, they could just be selling it as well. Yes, Carrie, you are correct. See, I'm just telling you. There are some colleagues of mine who are just too busy. I'm not vilifying them, just too busy. They don't have time to go research these articles to keep up with their CMEs or barely keep up with their CMEs. And sometimes they're getting told sales pitches with slide decks, obviously, that are stacked in the favor of a new treatment or medication or medical device while they're getting a free lunch, free dinner, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. You get a free lunch, free dinner, whatever. But it's like, are you going to use your brain? And are you actually going to take that information and say, the person pitching this to me is not a physician? Most of the time, they're not a physician. They're not a nurse practitioner. Sometimes it's a pharmacist who no longer wants to work in retail or in a hospital. Sometimes it's a pharmacist. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's literally a sales rep. I mean, it's literally a salesman. I mean, they could be selling anything. They could be selling you some other supplement, a vacuum cleaner, security system, but they just happen to be selling pharmaceuticals and dropping off free samples. And some physicians are just literally learning from a sales rep who never went to med school, never went to nursing school, never went to pharmacy school. I think that's crazy, right? But look, you have enough of those lunches, you see enough of those slide decks, it does influence you, right? It does influence you, in my opinion, because if that's all you've heard about some new treatment, you haven't done your own research. You might say, well, it's FDA approved, so it's got to be relatively safe. And this is the only one I could think of right now because I haven't had time to look into anything else. And yeah, it does happen, Carrie. It does. I've seen it happen. I've had people I've supervised say, hey, I'm going to use this treatment. And I go, why? There's no evidence that that's any better. That treatment costs $900 a month. This one that costs $4 a month works just as good. Show me the evidence the $900 a month works as good as the $4 a month one. And I get a blank stare. Because they clearly didn't research it themselves. They were just told this is the newest, coolest thing on the block, right? Oh, it happens, Carrie. Oh, it happens, right? And we can get into that. Because, yeah, I think there's problems with how much influence there could be on clinicians directly. I actually think there's a deeper problem, okay? I think there's a huge problem in how these drugs are even FDA approved. Okay. I'm not going to talk about other fields. I'm going to stay in my lane. I'm not going to talk on things I don't know and just Googled. Okay. But before I worked at my current job, I currently work in telehealth for an outpatient setting. Prior to this, I worked for almost 5 years in clinical research. So I was what you would call a principal investigator. So that's just the fancy term for it's the physician who is in charge at a research site. Okay. And you would oversee the conduct of a clinical trial for these experimental drugs that are not FDA approved. You would be overseeing the research center's activities related to that study, recruiting the volunteers who are willing to take an experimental drug or a placebo. You would do the physical exam. So yes, I'm a weird psychiatrist. I'm even doing physical exams and EKGs, blood work, reading the blood work. So a little bit atypical. Like I'm doing a lot of physicals like a primary care physician would, which was a good experience. So, I would do that, oversee the recording of side effects, the progress of the patient, medical safety concerns. So trust me, in a short span, in like 5 years, I was involved in 100 clinical research studies, 100 clinical trials. Some of the things that are FDA approved out there right now, whether it's intranasal esketamine, some of the drugs for postpartum depression that have recently come out, I was involved in those clinical trials. Okay, this random guy in a hoodie with a backward hat, sitting at home, I was involved in some of the things that led to the fruition of treatments that are now in the market for you. Okay. So trust me when I say this isn't just some guy on social media blabbing and being critical with conspiracy theories. I was in the thick of it, and I can tell you the following. Okay. At least for psychiatric medications, they essentially rotate the same 25, 35 research centers over and over and over and over again for every single medication that is in the pipeline for mental health treatment. Okay? They recruit a couple academic sites like Harvard or Yale or NYU or UCLA, blah, blah, blah. Those centers don't do jack. They just want their names. They want the names of a few key doctors who are affiliated with those academic facilities, and they want their names for the journals that'll come out later. But in reality, I'm going to be blunt. No offense, academia. Academic hospitals are so inefficient. Oh my God. Talk about bureaucracy. So inefficient. They can't recruit worth crap. Of all the volunteers that get recruited, this is how much academic centers recruit. Privately owned. They almost look like just private practices, like your doctor's office that you go see your primary care. It just looks like a normal office. Nothing super fancy most of the time. Sometimes it is a big mega building for the really, really big research centers, but oftentimes it's just like a regular office building. They do almost all the recruiting of volunteers in mental health. And here's the problem. In mental health research, guys, here's the dirty little secret. Of course, there's money involved, right? You get paid more the more people you recruit. And if you got to recruit more people to make more money and turn a profit, keep the lights on, pay your employees, what do you think happens with pressure? What do you think happens with cutting corners? When the drug companies say to you, at the beginning of the study on day one, when it's launching, there's excitement, there's all this jovial affect in the room at the conference. Quality, 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 quality. All we want is high quality. Then what happens, guys? Mid-study. Hey, we're behind our timelines. Our shareholders are pissed. Are we going to meet the deadline? How is this going to affect our stock price? And then, interestingly, right, that chant of quality, quality, quality goes out the door. Now it becomes faster, 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 faster. And what do you think those 25, 35 research centers say? Well, if we don't hit our quota, are we going to get selected for future studies? Can't risk losing hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars of revenue that are coming from the deep coffers of pharma. So what do you think they do? The pressure trickles down. Shareholders to the executives at the pharma company, executives to the clinical leaders, from the clinical leaders to the project leaders of that trial, from the project leaders to the research centers, and then the research centers to the clinicians at the research centers. Oh, good Lord, guys. One day, all right, when I don't care about my life and I don't care about my licensure and not caring about getting a million lawsuits, oh yeah, one day I'll write you a tell-all book, okay? I'll write you a tell-all book one day if you want to hear some of this. Someone find me a safety net, find me a TV deal. So I have a soft landing spot, and then I'll tell you what you guys want to hear, okay? So when I say, I know I sound like a conspiracy nut today about skepticism. Trust me. Skepticism is warranted, okay? One day we'll get into an episode when just have to apologize to my wife and family ahead of time before I drop some bombshells and then get in a bunch of trouble and get accused of violating NDAs and stuff, guys. But trust me when I say there's a lot of shadiness that goes into clinical research as well, okay? I'm not saying be fearful of every drug you take. There are some drugs that are wonderful, that projects that I was very proud to take part of. Not perfect drugs, but drugs that I think can help people. There are others have no business of being on the market right now. Absolutely no business of being on the market. Shame on the FDA. Shame on the FDA for allowing some of these things through and buckling to the pressure of political agendas, advocacy groups, where on face value, it's in the name of advocacy, but there's really lobbying going on. Right? I'm going to end it on this funny note. Andy Lee says, so just to clarify, heroin for a cough is a no-go. You are correct, Andy, because this is the year 2024. I think it's a no-go. Maybe back in 1901 or whenever it was. Maybe it would have been the first thing I prescribed for you. But on that note, guys, we're going to end on a positive. We're going to end with some laughing. So not to sound as ominous I did a minute ago, guys, but I'm being serious, right? I don't want you to be fearful. I just want you to have skepticism, educate yourself. If you have a good doctor, a good nurse practitioner, you should be able to have a healthy conversation about things like this. And they shouldn't be fearful to give you a straight answer or say, I don't know, I'm going to get back to you after I do some research myself, right? That's the sign of a healthy clinician. I don't know everything. Every clinician doesn't know everything, but a healthy one will know their limits, will go research and try to do the best for your best interest, right? For your best interest. So do you think the situation will improve with the next administration with RFK? Good question here. I don't know. I'm going to do some research on RFK. Maybe we'll do an episode just on what the viewers' thoughts are on RFK, right? I don't even know if he's going to get approved. Off the top, I don't want to get too far down that rabbit hole. I'll say there are a few things that I think are intriguing. Like I think on his agenda is trying to crack down on direct-to-consumer marketing for drug companies like this. So I think there are some positives. Then there's some weird kooky things. I know that he has a track record of being very anti-vax. There is a huge cohort of people who are very anti-COVID vaccine out there, right? Could the COVID vaccine, were there steps maybe that were rushed? I don't know. I'd have to do some more research, but in general, I don't think all vaccines are bad. RFK has said some very controversial things. He kind of pandered to that concept of all vaccines being, direct link or cause of autism, which has already been debunked several times. So I know that he has said some non-scientifically based things that are very concerning. I know this fluoride thing is now making rounds across the country. So yeah, very interesting character, controversial character, clearly. So yeah, let me put that down on my list, Carrie. I will, take a look into some of his proposed agendas. Maybe make a whole episode out of that, maybe in these upcoming weeks. I appreciate your comment there. So again, guys, for those of you who are checking in for the first time, make sure you make sure you subscribe to my channel. I appreciate you guys tuning in late nights. This is therapeutic for me to just rant and have a place to have some cathartic conversations. And really for the regulars, Andy, Carrie, I know Dennis has been here before too. I appreciate you guys just chit-chatting with me late at night. It's past midnight already on the East Coast. So for those of you late night owls, get some sleep. Try not to stay up too much later tonight. Get some rest, guys. It's been a fun episode. It's been a funny, kooky episode. Talked about heroin and cocaine and speed. That's right, buddy. Drug dealers late at night on the Insomniacs Livestream. Dr. Kim tuning out, guys. Have a good night. I'll see you guys on Tuesday for the next live stream. Be safe, everybody.